of times in life, the lessons are the best if you actually experience it.
Welcome to Drop and Give Me 20, where you learn keys to entrepreneurial success as Lindsey Germono interviews business owners with military backgrounds on what works and what doesn't. Listen as they focus on the stories, both challenges and wins, that military entrepreneurs have faced in growing their businesses.
Thanks for joining me on another episode of Drop and Give Me 20. I am your host, Lindsey Germono. Today we are going to talk about cash flow with the lovely Meghan Alonso of Imua. Hi, Meghan.
Aloha. How are you doing, Lindsey?
Aloha. I want to say that back.
Yeah.
So your company, well, you have a lot of island lingo in your company's website. It was on it earlier today, prepping for our podcast interview, and I love that because I am a closet beach junkie. I guess it's not closet. Everybody knows I'm obsessed with the beach, but I love how you tie that into the services that you provide. So for those that are listening, let's hear some about your company.
Sure. So I work with entrepreneurs and startup companies in the medical product space. So anything from a disposable pregnancy test to a orthopedic implant to an MRI machine. I help companies get off the ground and build their business in a way that they can attract the investment that they need to develop the products, and then also connect them to development partners. Like if they need regulatory help to get their products through the FDA, or if they need intellectual property support from a lawyer, finding them the appropriate specific lawyer to work with and guiding them through the process. So I along with my family, have had medical issues in the past that we're just extremely thankful for all the medical innovation that people brave enough with an idea have actually gone out and done it and taken it to market. So I want to help fuel this innovation cycle for others.
And did you have a background in the medical field?
Yes. So many moons ago, I worked in an orthopedic rehab clinic with patients. And from there, I got exposed to the sales and marketing side, which I really liked. And then the recession hit, and then the writing was on the wall for healthcare changing. And it's tough these days to be in business as a private medical practice, a small business. And I was really intrigued by all the devices that we had in the clinic and wanted to jump over on that side. And so I landed in product development. So I was doing business development for a product development company. And that may sound confusing. So business development is essentially a mixture of sales and marketing and PR and business strategy. So I was doing that for this company that provided services as far as engineering, design, and development of prototyping and testing, and then getting the products ready for manufacturing. So I was already working with these entrepreneurs and startups in that setting. But I would interface with people when I was out and about networking or at trade shows or events or just fielding phone calls. And a lot of people would inquire about those services. They wanted them, but they weren't necessarily funded to a place where they could get them yet. So I just naturally started helping them get there. And that's where Imua was born.
So, and you are military, correct?
So technically, I am the wife of a reservist. We were active duty. He was active duty for 12 and a half years. And so I've been through 6 deployments, and which we can get into. I feel like I definitely did not have the typical military wife experience for the first, we got married in 2009. And he was pretty much at one duty station our entire marriage till he got out recently. Although when we moved, so we were based out of Camp Pendleton. My husband was in the Marines and got off of active duty. Now he's defense contracting in the DC area. So we moved cross country, or I had my PCS experience. And he's in the reserves now. But contracting, I feel like he does the same thing essentially, except he just wears civilian clothes and he's not technically in the service, but his client is the Army. So it's, he works with them all day long.
And along the way, you launched this business.
Yes, along the way I did that, and I definitely got to experience what it's like to PCS
with your business.
Yeah.
When we had we were just chatting before I hit record, and we started talking about that cash flow. And I said, that's not something that we've had a lot on the podcast. So I kind of grabbed that. And I would love for you to share with us what that means to you and why that's important to manage even as a small business owner, which many of our listeners will be because they are, either just getting started or they're operating it out of their house. They're trying to get it up and going. So let's kick that topic around, what cash flow means.
Well, since I've been in an environment where I have worked with entrepreneurs and startups before, I knew this going into it. But a lot of times in life, the lessons are the best if you actually experience it. And so unfortunately, but fortunately, I guess it did happen to me where when I started my business, I thought I had enough runway. Actually, I take that back. When I started my business, I had plenty of runway and I had a secure client base and everything was happy and great. But leading up to our move, so we're recording this at the end of April in 2017. And I was preparing for our move in December 2016. And we actually did move in February of 2017. So I mapped out a plan as far as, okay, this is my cash flow the next few months. These are the bills I'm anticipating through this summer. And what do I need to bring in, or what do I need to have stashed away to support myself through that move? Because I was moving away from some of my clients, and I knew, even though we're in such a virtual world, some of them had already expressed like, hey, this isn't going to continue after you move. So I knew that going into it, and that was fine. I was planning for it. So I thought I had enough reserves, and things can always happen in your business. So Lindsey and I had talked about this offline as well, that I had an experience with another company where I outsourced some work to, and the project that I outsourced to them just didn't go as planned. And so it's cost me some money. And then it was also, they were advertising for me. Of course, I would have worked with Germono advertising. This was definitely Google ads and things like that. That's out of your wheelhouse. So not only is it lost expenses for me, but the fact that it was supposed to be a revenue generating activity and that wasn't happening. So I've lost a lot of my reserves, and it's just a lesson on the runway that you think you need. I would definitely suggest doubling that.
Yeah.
And even to the point where now I'm taking on projects with clients that I normally wouldn't, they require a lot more of my time, but I need that cash flow right now. And that's okay. I've come to accept that I didn't fail. It's just that I hit some bumps in the road, and I need to just do whatever I can do to get myself back to where I need to be.
And learn from it as well. We talked about that instance, and I know that you're in a much better direction with that company that's assisting you with that. But what we don't factor for, which I'm going to kind of elaborate on my side, is so the cost of a mistake in your business, or the cost of something not going as planned in your business. So let's just generalize it and say you ordered a stack of business cards, and the business cards maybe cost you, I don't know, $25 or whatever that is. And you get them in, you're excited, but then there's a typo. Well, now you're out business cards. Now you've got to reorder them and, get it reshipped to you. And that's a very small example, and people are going, oh, that's no big deal. I'll eat that cost. But imagine that on a larger scale in your business, right? So maybe even losing a client. So the effect on your business of losing a client, how that trickles into even down to like supplies. So you should have a budget for your supplies and your materials that that you need to run a business. But if you lose a client, how is that going to impact the company, even from a short-term or long-term perspective? We don't forget, but I think that there's a lot of lessons learned in understanding cash flow and how something can impact, things in your business.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And what I haven't been doing, because I'm still new, is setting aside, okay, I have a business checking account. Let's get a business savings account too. And just stash some money away and just have that there for reserves, like to try to not touch it unless I absolutely need it in situations like that, where if you do lose a client on the spot, and especially if you have payroll and you're paying people, that payroll is coming from the clients that you have each month.
You can see my face and other people can't, but I like my eyes widen because that is a huge fear of mine, is not being able, I mean, we're very blessed to not be in that position right now, but I'm constantly like, oh my gosh, if that affects my company, I have employees to pay and, they're depending on that. So I get like anxiety thinking about, but it also motivates me to continue, getting new clients and making sure that our current clients are, 100,000% or whatever happy then, and not losing them, because the cost of losing a client is it affects a lot of things in our business. For a service-based industry like ours. Yeah. For your industry in the medical field, how do you go about finding new clients? Like I know some of our military-owned businesses, whether they're photographers or people who can kind of adapt to the needs that are at that base. Yours, you really have a very niche service that you offer. Like, what would you recommend to those that are listening that want to start a business and they know this is kind of a niche thing and they might be hesitant?
Well, you really got to find your people where they're at. So with me, traditionally, that's been in person. I've been very successful meeting people, whether it's at networking events or really targeted conferences or trade shows, and getting to know who the players are. So I have a big network of other industry providers or service providers. So like I mentioned before, I'm not an intellectual property lawyer. I'm not a regulatory specialist. I don't run clinical trials. I'm not an engineer, but I have a big network of who those people are. And it's just as important. Actually, I would argue it's probably even more important than finding direct clients, to surround yourself with people that are also serving your clients. So then you can collaborate together. So what I mean by that is I give the basic 101 knowledge and I help encourage and I push these entrepreneurs and startups along. But at the same time, it's very important for me to know, okay, you have a cardiac product, you over here you have an orthopedic product, you over here you have a diagnostic product, and I'm able to, I just know automatically you are going to talk with this IP lawyer, you're going to talk with that one, you're going to talk with this one over here, because they're all different. And then being able in serving the other service providers and feeding them business and building that strong relationship, they will also give you business because they're going to work with people that need your help too.
Well, and you're saving them time from having to figure out how to do that on their own by, a Google search or trying to figure out, like, you've already vetted the people that you're recommending to these, specialized industries. And so you're going, here's the person. And, so you're saving them time, which I can appreciate that too, because time is money. So you have a podcast.
I do have a podcast.
Yay! For podcasters. I want to hear about your podcast too. And, for a military business owner, a podcast is a really cool thing, y'all, because so Meghan and I actually connected because of our mutual interest in podcasting before we knew we were both like military spouses. So because of an outside third party, a civilian connection of ours. So I think that's a really cool example of, kind of getting off base and making those connections and networking. But talk to us about that podcasting and what that's done for your business.
So I think having a podcast is great, not only because you can connect with people that you can't meet in person. I have people, it still amazes me. I have people all over the world that listen to my podcast.
I know. I've seen the demographics on ours too. I'm like, who cares about Drop and Give Me 20 in Germany? Like, that's
there's a lot of military in Germany though.
Yeah.
So, you never know who you're speaking to. And if you're constantly dripping that valuable content to them, they like that. And I forgot who says this. Oh, it's Marie Forleo that says this.
Oh my God, I love her.
Yeah. So you either want to attract or repel your audience. And what that means is someone that finds my podcast, mine is called Inspired by Imua. So Imua is a Hawaiian word that means to advance forward despite rough waves. And I tie that into my branding with, hey, when you have a medical product startup, there's tons of rough waves. Let's get past them together. So if they find that, or if they find Drop and Give Me 20, and they're into it, they like the flavor of it, they want more of it, that's great. If they listen to it and they're like, I hate how this girl always talks about surfing and this is super annoying, they're not going to listen to it and they're not going to be a client of mine. That's fine.
Yeah, there's something for everybody.
Yeah, there's something for everybody. And it puts you in a position of, wow, they must be well known. And that's pretty cool. But what also is pretty cool is I've leveraged that in a few different ways. So when I mentioned going to these trade shows and conferences, so some of them are very expensive. You can pay $1,500, $2,000 to go to a 2-day event. So what I do is I look at what events I want to go to, and I call them up or email them, and I say, hey, I'm Meghan Alonso. I have this podcast. It reaches this network. You know this, Lindsey, from just advertising and showing your reach, showing your audience and what demographics are broken down. And I can show that to them and say, hey, I will do this for you. I will, in advance of your event, let's get on the podcast. Let's do an episode to talk about it and drive traffic to it and get people to register. And then when it comes time for your event, I'll attend it and I'll bring my travel mic. And I'll be capturing audio from your event using your hashtag, using your Twitter handle, and just creating buzz around it. And I get in for free doing that. So I think that's
I need to up my barter, my trade game. I feel like I need to really get into this a little bit more. There are 2 conferences that I live by every year. The Internet Marketing Association has one in Vegas. Have you been to that one yet? The Impact in Vegas?
I haven't.
Okay, maybe we can do a dual podcast from it or something, but that's a good one. And then the Millspo Project Embark. So those are the 2 on my list. But I wanted to go to Grow. Inc. 5000 has one. And so that's a really great tip that you've shared with us. The podcast listenership can help you with your leveraging as far as reach and stuff goes and into those events.
And I mentioned before, find the other people that serve your audience. So that's a great way to say, I'll pick an engineering firm since I was talking about IP law earlier. So, hey, engineering firm, I know you design orthopedic devices. That's your specialty. Hey, on my podcast, I have all these people listening and they're working on orthopedic devices. So it would be great to have you on the podcast and give your expertise because this is my audience that's listening. And first of all, you don't have to develop that content. Like you don't have to sit down and write something. And second of all, it's pretty cool for your audience to hear from someone else. I know podcasters that just do solo episodes where it's just them talking. But then when you mix it up and you have someone else talking, it can freshen it up a bit. And then what they do is they're excited that they were on your podcast. So they're going to promote it for you. And then you get all these new people that find out about it. So it is a great thing.
Well, Meghan, I want to thank you for coming on the Drop and Give Me 20 podcast, from a fellow podcaster to another podcaster, and also military spouse to military spouse, and business owner to a business owner. I respect the work that you do out in the community, and I want to thank you for that. So how can people connect with you?
They can head over to Imua-Services.com. And I know you may be wondering how to spell that. So it's IMUA. So Imua-Services.com. I am over on Facebook, LinkedIn, and Twitter. So you can also find me there too.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Meghan, for your time. And you guys definitely go check out Imua Services and her podcast so that you can get inspired by Imua. And thank you so much, Meghan, and we will chat soon, I'm sure.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Drop and Give Me 20, brought to you by Germono Advertising Company in Norfolk, Virginia. Please visit our podcast in iTunes, click on subscribe, and leave us a review. Your support goes a long way. When you subscribe and leave reviews, it helps the guests on our show as well. Jump in and let us know what you think. You can also follow all of our guests on the Drop and Give Me 20 Facebook page. We have Instagram and Twitter. Those handles are Give Me 20 Podcast. I'm your host, Lindsey Germono, and I appreciate you listening to the show.